before we get into this video, just want to say, guys, that this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit the Prize Picks app today for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, I wanted to talk about this particular thing here because, you know, it's about time we talk about it. And I mean, we kind of all have been discussing it at this point. So this is not a conversation that Colts fans are unused to having at this point. But really, I mean, it comes down to this defense right now. And I know it's week one. And obviously, there is time for this defense to be able to figure it out in a sense, at least a little bit. But the overall concern right now is, this, at least from the current trend, is what we're seeing is that the Indianapolis Colts are headed for another bad season, defensively at least. But before we hop into the rest of this, guys, just want to say this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit the Prize Picks app today and use the code BTJ for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. But guys, for this defense right now, I mean, we saw the Colts lose their what is it now? The 11th season now that the Indianapolis Colts have not won an opening game. And it's absolutely insane. And it's really sad. I mean, I don't, at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about week ones in particular, but what is upsetting me right now is that this defense does not look any more improved than what it has been in past years. I mean, guys, we've seen plenty of times where, this defense has typically been able to stand on its own, particularly against the run, and being able to figure things out because of the front four and, the linebackers that we've had, have been able to figure things out. But that was the first time in the last few years that I have seen this defense, when practically everybody was healthy, seen a defense just get absolutely destroyed like that in every aspect of the game. Guys, football season is right around the corner. Definitely got to make sure you're getting in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. You guys can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks, guys. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with any entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. I mean, guys, look, I'm looking at some of these entries here. And if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan like myself, which you probably are because you're on here right now, well, I'm just looking at some of these season numbers here. And some of the stuff for Anthony Richardson, I have to get in on. Guys, we have one right here where it's 7.5 on the season rushing touchdowns for Anthony Richardson. Folks, Anthony Richardson had 4 rushing touchdowns in just 10 quarters of football last season. What do you think he's going to do this year when he's actually healthy and fully capable of going? Now, obviously, they're playing into the fact that they think he might get injured. Anthony Richardson doesn't. That 7.5 is an easy more when you want to talk into that one, guys. So make sure you are getting in on the action of getting some of these numbers for Anthony Richardson and other Colts players as well. Remember, guys, be sure to download the Prize Picks app today and use the code BTJ for your first deposit match up to $100. And it's concerning because, we've been hearing this entire offseason about the Indianapolis Colts and how they have insane confidence in this defense, particularly with the secondary. And like we said before, guys, they obviously brought in no safety help. They brought in no cornerback help. They are basically running with the exact same unit that they had last year. And now we have already seen to where one guy is out again for the entirety of the year. One of our safeties is now hurt, and our best safety in Julian Blackmon. And who knows if he's going to play in week 2 or what's going on with that. But now, and then you got a couple injuries on the defensive line already happening. And I'm not as worried about the defensive line per se, but mainly it's about the secondary. And at the end of the day, I kind of want to know, like, who's at fault for this defense really being the issue with the Indianapolis Colts? I mean, this Colts defense is a bottom tier defense right now, at least from what we saw in week 1. We'll see how they look this week, even though it's hard to really take this next week with a grain of salt, given the fact that, we are missing, or that Green Bay is going to be playing a backup quarterback, not Jordan Love. I mean, I'll be completely honest with you guys. If Jordan Love was playing in this game, I'd have absolutely no confidence in the Indianapolis Colts to win this game. I'm going to be straight up. I mean, with the way our team has played, I'd have no confidence. And here, even against Willis, I even still have my doubts. I still think we can win. I definitely think we can win. But I have my doubts because of the defense. The defense is super concerning. You overprotected against the pass last week to try to stop that 3-headed monster, and you still couldn't even really contain it that great. And on top of it, you just allow one of the best rushing performances in Texans football history that game. And now you're coming into this other team against this other team who has just as much talent, I would argue, as this team you just faced. They have a worse quarterback, way worse quarterback, but they have the same talent almost. And your defense is now going to be worse because Juju Prince isn't going to be out there. You're probably going to miss 1 or 2 more starters. And even if they weren't, I would still question what we're doing here, because I think that there is blame to go around for both sides for how bad this defense is right now. And those 2 culprits are Gus Bradley and Chris Ballard. The main problem with the Chris Ballard thing is, again, what fans have been saying the entire offseason. The Colts need some help in the secondary. Doesn't matter if it's starters. I can buy the, oh, hey, yeah, guys, like we're going to run with this group, but we want to get some depth in here. And you know what? Even if they play better than the group of guys that we have, like, you guys can start if you come in and win the job respectfully. Like, then I would understand that, like trying to get some depth. But the Colts did nothing to improve the depth or the starting potential of this secondary. And it shows that it was a bad mistake already. You saw in the first game, they were getting torched. Didn't matter if the defensive line wasn't great. I mean, they were getting torched. And on top of it, I think it also has to go to Gus Bradley on this too. I mean, guys, in 2022, when he joined the Indianapolis Colts, that was the one time that his defenses were actually pretty good. That 2022 Colts defense was actually a good defense. Wasn't a great defense, but it was far from bad, and it was better than average. At times it looked average, but most times it was a good defense, given the fact of what the offense put them through that year. But why was it that we're seeing the Colts were a top 12 defense in 2022, and then the next year they go to be the 24th best defense? And if you projected the ratings over the span of this season, they probably finished with 28th. So why has it been on the steep decline? Well, the main part of it is personnel. Personnel was different then. In that cornerback room, you had Isaiah Rodgers, Stephon Gilmore, and you had Rodney McLeod at safety. So you mix those guys. So if you had Isaiah Rodgers, Kenny Moore, Stephon Gilmore, Rodney McLeod, and Julian Blackmon, that is a really good group of secondary guys. Isaiah Rodgers, sure, he was small, but he can hang with everyone because he has the speed to do so. He's got good ball skills. Stephon Gilmore, even at the age of 32, was one of the best free agents in the market. They went and got him. He was a stud. He locked down some of the best wide receivers in the league. And then Rodney McLeod, he wasn't an insane pass defender, but he played his role very well. He got a lot of tackles. He made plays down heading downfield. And then Julian Blackmon, when he was healthy, of course, Julian Blackmon was really good. So you had, and of course, Kenny Moore is Kenny Moore. Even though that year, Kenny Moore had one of his worst seasons. I believe it was that year. So, it was definitely it was a much better defense then because you had better personnel and you had better personnel in the backfield of that defense. And Zaire Franklin emerging as this elite linebacker helped a lot in that transition. I would argue the defensive line right now is better than what it was in 2022, yes, but you had a way better secondary, which allowed you to do some things on the defensive line that maybe you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So, yes, the blame is on Ballard there for not making the roster better by adding that depth or adding players that were going to immediately make this team better, despite the wanting to stay intrusive and wanting to see what those players have. But it's also on Gus now because, Gus, you don't have Stephon Gilmore. You don't have Isaiah Rodgers. You don't have Rodney McLeod. You got a young defense with mainly vets on the front seven. And you're still trying to do the same things you did with the Legion of Boom 10 years ago that you can't do now. You can't do that stuff now. You don't have a secondary full of players that are so good that they can stand on their own, know where to go, and just allow the front four to take advantage of what they have. You don't have that. But yet you still continue to do the same things over and over, not pressuring the quarterback enough, not changing up the scheme, not changing up who's doing what. And still at the same time as well, going back to what I said before about this team and having to change how they approach the game because of the pass. I mean, again, the Colts defense usually can stand on its own against even against good fronts, but yet somehow, some way they couldn't do it against the Texans at all. Like, that goes to show me you put way too much emphasis on stopping the pass rather than trying to level it out. And you just said, I would rather die by running the football. Well, guess what? You died by running the football and from CJ Stroud. So your plan did nothing. That's the point.
So I don't really want to get too much more on a ramble here, guys, but I'm very interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Um, who do you blame more for this defense's struggles? Is it a lot of both? Is it a lot of one side or the other? But again, let me know your guys' thoughts on this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.